Okay, again, I'm trying to make a clipping mask here. So in this case, I'm going to duplicate. So first I made a blue rectangle, as you can see. It's right here, a blue rectangle. I'm going to duplicate that blue rectangle so I have two of them. Okay, and then this one I'm going to apply one of the effects. I'm going to use the halftone pattern. Oh, I forgot to select it first. Select the rectangle, go under effects. The halftone pattern's under sketch. I got a halftone pattern right there. Kind of the dots that you see in a lot of background graphics. It's kind of like the halftone pattern, and you can see it here. And let's make them pretty big dots, big as we can, and some high contrast, and hit OK. And hopefully it'll save it here. Okay, next I'm gonna make a rectangle over top of it. Let me deselect first, and then select the rectangle. I'm going to draw a rectangle over top of it, and then once I draw the rectangle, I'm going to select both that new rectangle I just drew and the halftone dot pattern, both of them together, and I'm going to use the under object they have the clipping mask. I'm going to say make. Now you don't see anything really happening here, but what you need to do is once you have the clipping selected here, we want to apply a gradient to it. So let's apply a gradient, and it was working for me. No. Maybe select both of them and try a gradient. Maybe not. I just had it working. Well, here's one I did before. You can see I have a pattern going over top of it, and then I have a green pattern going over top of it. This kind of has a gradient to it. So this object that you see right here actually has a gradient that goes from transparent over here to opaque green over here, so that the pattern's coming through. The one I was just working on turned out to be quite nice. I don't know why it's not working right now. I just had it as a sample, and it turned out pretty nice. Let me see if I can undo back to where I was. I don't think so. Whatever. The problem with those art effects is that, of course, you got to render it each time and all that stuff. So it was a really nice effect. I just don't know why it keeps doing this to me. So that was a nice effect. If I can figure out how to do it again, I'll show you again. Let me move on to something else that might work. Next thing I wanted to do was kind of get into the basic pattern with this time trying some of these other tools that you see here. Okay, they have the spiral tool, which is kind of nice. You got this sort of spiral grid here. I was going to try and make a little effect with that, if I can. I don't want to fill. What do I want with that? I just want a plain stroke. Maybe one that's different sizes, different size here, like that. And then again, duplicate that. Maybe rotate it, and maybe change the color. Maybe make it really big. So one of the things that you should think about is maybe just changing the size of things over and over again to make a pattern. That's sort of how, and then maybe make it really thick. So this one's thick and the other one's thin. And then try blending those two together and see what you get. Clicking on the endpoints. If I can select them, I guess I need to select this one too. Select both of them. And then let's click on the endpoints here. Oh, that doesn't look very nice. I don't know. The samples I made before, I think, turned out a little bit better. This halftone was a little bit better. This one had a squiggle effect, and again, the object that I have over top of it is actually transparent. So let's get back to where I was just so. Maybe I make a shape like that. Maybe I scale it a little bit to make it really big, kind of fancy tunnel look here. kind of a tunnel look. And then maybe we can make some rectangle over top of it. Okay, and then maybe give it a color. And let's turn off the stroke, and then maybe duplicate that. Oh shit, I did in the same layer. Maybe duplicate that layer, drag next to a trash can to duplicate a layer. So I have 2 layers now. Next I can select one of them and maybe apply a pattern. I was working on some of these artistic effects before. Definitely not this one. How about film grain? We'll see if we can get it really grainy up there, really contrasty. And then, so the film grain gives it kind of a pattern like that. Again, we're forced with the craziness that is. And then instead of using a blend for this, like we had before here, a blend. So you see how we got it like this. So instead of blending it using the gradient tool, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use you can transparent the actual gradient here. So if I select the white one for the gradient, which is this side here, I can turn the opacity down, which will then give me sort of an effect where the color from behind it will come through. If my computer will cooperate. So now if you want to get something like this, so you can kind of do that, maybe even get maybe move that in the middle, put one on the end over here. It's never going to work. My computer's too slow. And then maybe turn the opacity down for that. This is never going to work. There we go. So if you want to get somewhat like a grain somewhat halfway through your graphic, and maybe we can even move this. Yeah, well, you get the idea. I think you could really do some patterns. So if you zoom in on this, you can really see it. You get this nice sort of grain that's only on part of the image and not the whole image. How could I get that to be with the one underneath it? I could actually maybe use a blending mode. The other thing you got is under the transparency. Don't forget you have all these great blending modes that you can sort of blend with the colors underneath them. Oh, that wasn't a good one. How about we try overlay? Uh-oh, I'm on the top layer. Actually wanted to be on the middle layer and blend with the one underneath it. There you get sort of colors like that. It's really not blending too much with the one underneath it. But you get the idea of using some of the transparencies with the different blending modes. Gradient with a transparency here. I haven't got the clipping mask to work right, but I'm sure there's a possible way. Maybe read the book. Try the last one I want you to try will be a text one. So you saw the sample that I posted on the page there. Again, just putting text on the page, you'll see there's a lot of great ways of making text and blending text together. Maybe try doing different fonts for each maybe. Do a font with that, do a font with this, do a font like that. Let's see here, doing different fonts. And then try different sizes of fonts. Ooh, the cactus font. I've always liked that one. Okay, so maybe doing different fonts as backgrounds. Again, in fact, the easier way once you put the text on there is just to turn the text into an outline by using create outline, and that turns it into objects, so they're easier to work with, so they're not actual text anymore. And then you can work with them as like shapes, so they're shapes and not just there. So again, you can really make some nice backgrounds with just fonts like this, and maybe just change their colors over and over again. So you can just put them on there, put some color on there, put another one on there, change the color up, and then maybe even change the blending modes on each one of them and see how they blend together. I don't know about overlay. Nope. That doesn't seem to work very well, does it? Well, yellow is probably not the best one to use for that. And then again, you could even duplicate them. I think the sample I made earlier was a better one than this one. But again, if you looked at some of the samples from the website there, you know, the printed pieces here, you can see some beautiful sort of way that she uses the text blending with the background and that. So this is really what I want you to work on, making something like this. I was just showing you some techniques in a video. I'm sure by reading and practicing a little bit, and you see the really nice blending with the shapes right here with the color coming out. Just trying to make things like that. And again, circles, maybe try and make circles that are, you know, are not full circles, they're partial circles. This is where the clipping mask would really come in like that. I just don't know why it's not working for me. I guess I need to read the book myself, but the clipping mask, let's try that one. Again, let's try an ellipse, and let's give it a stroke. Let's change the stroke size, kind of big. Change it so it's not. There we go. Nice sort of. No, I want it even. Wait, I want it even. Let's do even. Okay, and then maybe we can try and make a clipping mask this time. Let's see. So we use a rectangle. Draw it over top of it. Okay, we want to fill. No stroke, just a fill. Gradient fill, and then let's try making a white with black in there. And let's try and get it to go this way. I always do that wrong. There we go. Rectangle here. And select both objects. And go under object. Clipping mask. Make. Still doesn't work for me. I'm totally doing something wrong. I just totally need to. Okay, I know. I know what my problem is. It's not the clipping mask I want to make. I want to make the opacity mask using the transparency option here. Make opacity mask. That's what I want. It's under transparency. That's what I should have been doing before with the other one. It's called make opacity mask, and then it gives you that blend where you can have that. So, you know, getting that nice, I mean, that's where you can really get some nice effects with the halftone dots, you know, so you have only halftones in certain areas and stuff. It's underneath the transparency make opacity mask, and you can get things like that where you have, this is actually transparent right here, so if you have something underneath it. And if you think that you really wanted to use an image for this, I don't even know if I have any images here to use underneath this. I don't even know if I have any photos on here. I don't even know what kind of photos I have on my computer here. But if you have an image that you want, you can sort of see how it blends with the image underneath it. Well, I don't even know. Everything's all screwed up on my computer here. That doesn't look like a picture. But if you got an image, you can put it behind there. You can see how the opacity mask works. I think once they're like this, you can duplicate them for multiple ones. You can see how they blend together. Wouldn't that be nice? Maybe rotate them. There you go. Rotate them again. So all I want you to do is work on making backgrounds that you could see being used for a printed piece. Just like you saw the samples that I have. And oh, that looks pretty nice, just like that. Again, it's a circle with an opacity mask. This would make a nice background for something, as long as it's subtle. Again, to make things subtle, you can select them, and in the transparency option, you just turn the opacity down. It makes it kind of subtle in the background like that. See how it's just kind of subtle pattern back there. And then even duplicate this a million times over and over again. Make kind of a pattern like that. So you can get a pattern like that. And again, if you look under Save for Web, you'll see Save for Web and Device. You'll see what it is inside a square, because a lot of times the stuff's going outside the visible area. But look at that pattern like that. Very nice, easy way to do it. Just try some of the features in Illustrator and think about, you know, what would make a nice pattern for a background.